Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. Welcome, everyone. As always, just lovely to see you. A couple of people here I haven't seen for a while, and it's wonderful. We're going to start this morning slightly different, well, very differently than we ever do. And that is, I want to introduce someone, and that is Sarah Conover. And she's gonna do a really lovely wave so everyone knows who she is. Angela. Yeah, Angela's there. So Sarah Conover, I've known for 5, 6, 7 years, and it's been an incredibly uh, helpful, supportive relationship for me. And I really want to say all that I'm going to say, and that is, as a bhikkhuni, as a fully ordained nun in the Theravada tradition, I personally and many of us living in North America owe a great debt of gratitude to Sarah. And um, Anna Garrick of Virginia is nodding her head. I think even more the generation coming after me. And I said this on Tuesday, but it's not just the bhikkhunis. I think the entire Sangha. Um, and it's not like all Sarah's doing at all, but it's a piece. She's added a piece, and that is her son is a monk, Ajahn Nisabo, and he's one of the younger monks that are heading up the community in the Seattle area. And Ajahn Nisabo's been a monk for if 13 years or something like that, maybe more. It's ordained very young and ordained within the Ajahn Chah lineage. And Sarah made trips to Bayagiri Monastery and a bit of like, what up? What up? As a female, and has spoken very strongly, directly, consistently to her son. And not just that, she was proactive, and her husband, Doug. And they brought Ajahn Nisabo, I don't know, six years ago, 7 years ago, to Alokavihara Forest Monastery, where I was living in California, and sat him down with some bhikkhunis and had asked us, had primed us, like, please talk to him. And at that time, Ajahn Nisabo was just giving us the party line that, oh, what can I do? I'm just one, and I'm junior, and da da da. And the senior nun, Ayya Santachita, is incredibly skillful and said, actually, there is something you can do, and gave him something to do. And it was small and not small. And it was definitely challenging. And there and then, Ajahn Nisabo made a commitment. Okay, I'll do that one thing. I will do that. And had tremendous support from his parents. And then later, on his own volition, Ajahn Nisabo and Ajahn Kovalo, early days of Clear Mountain, initiated with the bhikkhunis at Alokavihara Forest Monastery and came and spent 3 days and just said, tell us what it's like for you. And we did. And at the end of that 3 days, just 3 days, solid listening. And it was such an amazing experience as a bhikkhuni to have a Western white monk ask you and listen. And at the end of that, Ajahn Nisabo said, next bhikkhuni ordination, invite me, I'm coming. And he did. And Ajahn Kovalo wasn't quite there. And good on him that he stayed connected to his own conscience and his own integrity. And a few months later, felt felt that same conviction. Just I'll just say a couple more things. I remember a Bhikkhuni we were living together, and she came to tea time and she kind of looked ashen and she's like, yeah, I was just listening to one of the most senior Ajahn Chah lineage monks giving recorded a very beautiful teacher, a beautiful Dhamma talk. And she said, but partway through, he was talking about the symbol of the robe. And and that it's harmless, right? You see a monk and you relax. You're comfortable, you're at peace. And she said her whole nervous system said, yeah, unless you're a bhikkhuni. It's a completely different experience. And the last thing is I want to read part, this is so obnoxious. I'm going to read part of a card from my son on Mother's Day. I got this a few years ago when I was still living at Alokavihara Forest Monastery. I won't read the gushy parts, but he writes, and it was quite a surprise to get this on Mother's Day. To all the bhikkhunis, acolytes, caretakers, and residents of Alokavihara Forest Monastery, I'm writing to wish you a happy and auspicious Mother's Day. I mean this in the classical sense. And then he goes on, to biological moms and talks about me. And then he says, but I also mean it in a larger sense. I see you as mothers to a new tradition, a role that surely requires all the energy, devotion, and sacrifice of traditional motherhood. And I'm saddened it was very challenging for my children to watch me do this journey. I'm saddened at times to hear of and then in parentheses, seemingly artificial barriers that you must overcome, especially when placed there by men in your self-same tradition. What I have felt during my short visits to Alokavihara, in addition to hard work and devotion, is an incredible amount of love and compassion. I wish you continued prosperity, that you may be a healing force in our world for a long time to come. With much love and positive energy. Sarah's here and I'm talking about her son. It got me thinking about my son. Not yet a monk, but he does, respond to goodness like we all do. Which brings me to the Dhamma talk. And thank you for listening to all that. I wanted, it's, December, and I got thinking about the themes for the year for me, especially. And they are wise attention, metta, and listening. That's what my year has sort of been about. And I came back from the 30-day retreat in Austin, Texas, from being with Beth Upton, and shared with everybody this amazing event for me was Beth reads a sutta every day of a retreat. And this one time she read this sutta and was trying to enlist us in a arrow reduction program. And it was the sutta of the two arrows. And the Buddha gives this, it's a very well-known sutta. The Buddha gives this extremely helpful metaphor that when we don't have a spiritual practice, when we don't have access to wisdom teachings, invariably we experience a painful sensation, a painful memory, a painful experience, a painful interaction, and there's that initial arrow, this initial pain. And then the way that the skill level, the tools that we have available, very often there's the one arrow, and then there's our reaction to it, our response to it, and it's another arrow, sometimes another arrow, another arrow, another arrow. And in the sutta, the Buddha is making it clear that the real escape from this conundrum that we all live in as human beings is nibbana, is complete freedom from delusion, and then the corresponding greed and aversion that our delusion gives birth to. And short of that, if you have access to deep meditation, and this was the part Beth said that I was like, oh my goodness. And she said, short of that, if you don't yet have access to deep meditation, we have what the skill, the instructions around wise attention. And when we are attending wisely, we can be reducing the amount of arrows that we are plaguing ourselves with. This wise attention. And the flavor of this wise attention, the baseline of this wise attention, obviously is mindfulness, being aware what is happening in the system, and then receiving it, this acceptance, this metta, this that we right from the get-go, when we're resisting what's actually there because of the unpleasantness of it or whatever, we're compounding the problem. So this metta, this acceptance, this receiving, and part of that receiving is this skill of listening, and that's really what I want to talk about. We've talked a lot this year about wise attention, about metta. This third theme for me, listening. When I think about listening, a sequence, a progression that is often described in the suttas is this progression of internal, external, and then finally both internal and external. And I want to apply that progression to listening, our skills, our ability in listening. And it's everything starts with internal. We have to practice it here. And so there's this internal listening, which is our meditation. And as we become more skilled listeners and more attentive and more attuned, then it's something that we're going to be practicing externally in our relationships, in our conversations, in our interactions. And then when we are very, very skilled, we're doing both simultaneously. We're able to be very tuned into what's happening here and aware of what's happening there at the same time. And this is someone that is well, we've all met people like this, and it's a powerful experience, a powerful experience. You know, if we do experience deep listening, it is this powerful experience. I'm going to read a couple of quotes, and the first one is Carl Rogers. When someone really hears you without passing judgment on you, without passing judgment on you, without trying to take responsibility for you, without trying to mold you, it feels damn good. I get to say that because it's in the quote. And Thich Nhat Hanh adds in, he goes on, deep listening, this is important, deep listening is at the foundation of right speech. If we cannot listen mindfully, we cannot practice right speech. No matter what we say, it will not be mindful because we'll be speaking only of our own ideas and not in response to the other person. So important for for us to understand how to listen. And in fact, I want to share something I've already shared before that it's from a science writer, Melanie Moyer Werner, hard name. And she's a science writer, and she's always, whenever she's writing, it's all based on very current research. And this is actually from a book that came out this past year, Hello, Cruel World. When people feel listened to, they become more self-reflective and humble and less extreme in their views. It's it it's an essential part of life that we feel listened to, that we feel heard, that we feel seen. This is a basic, basic, essential human need. You know, I that could be a whole talk. And many of us have had very few experiences of that. And when we come to meditate, we can begin to learn how to give this to ourselves. And a lot of healing can happen. And I want to just talk briefly about what listening is not, because I think often these are the things that come up when we think we're listening, and internally as well as externally. And the first thing is giving advice. And we do this. We are addicted to fixing. And even that takes such, we have to get more and more honest about how we all think of ourselves as broken and think of other people as broken. And we are, in a sense, and it's because we haven't been listened to and we don't know how to listen. The listening is the piece that we're missing. And we skip over it. We skip over it and go to the advice. And then there's this disconnect, and it's just a repeat of how we've lived our lives. And this is what Thich Nhat Hanh is talking about. Deep listening is the foundation of right speech. So, not giving advice. This being said, I'm going to give this whole list, and it doesn't mean there's never a place for those things. Those things all could emerge very organically after the listening has happened. But we just always get it wrong. Like we always get it backwards, upside down, like the Sutta talks about. So this is not listening. And what is needed is listening. So it's not giving advice. And it's not encouraging the other person. It's not reassuring the other person. We do these things, and the reason we do these things, I'm just speaking from my own knowing myself, the reason I do these things is because I'm uncomfortable with dukkha. I'm uncomfortable with the first noble truth. I'm uncomfortable with pain. I'm uncomfortable with suffering. I'm uncomfortable with aging. I'm uncomfortable with loss. I'm uncomfortable with confusion, perplexity, overwhelm. And I think I'm not alone. And so I'm trying to, give it a big Band-Aid when actually it needs a whole lot more than that. And the first thing it needs is to be received, is to be seen, is to be heard, is listening. And along with, advising and encouraging and reassuring encouraging is reassuring, and then the big one I do especially to myself, but anything we're doing to ourselves, we are doing externally, the big one I do is minimizing. And I think it was a strategy to deal with tremendous difficulty early on in life. I just became little Pollyanna, like little Miss Positive. And I got a lot of, attention that I was needing for being positive. So the message I got early was for what, for heaven's sake, be positive, you know. Um, yeah. Uh, and I minimize things. I minimize and it's such a disservice. And a lot of times, honestly, it's some of the smaller things that hurt the most. The just the missed opportunities, the the uh the slight turning away. These have an impact. I mean, talk to anyone that's in any kind of fringe group. It's the microaggressions. They compound, and it's like it's almost like this unseen unseen violence, and it compounds, and you don't realize it's happening. When something's really strong and overt, um, you often you get help, you tend to it. It's the little ones, and before you know it, you end the day, and there's been all these disconnects, and it 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 has an impact on us. And here we are practicing the Dhamma, trying to learn to open our hearts. So this is the other part. We need to understand um, when the heart is open, these smaller things are we they they hurt even more. So we have to learn these skills practicing together, and practicing with ourselves, of learning to really deeply listen. And, the last thing that we do in relationship, we often don't do, alone meditating. But it's, again, just such a disconnect of the listening, is the me tooing, where someone's finally coming forward, they're sharing something, and then we just swoop in and take the light, and zoom it onto ourselves, like, oh yeah, that happened to me too, oh yeah, I remember when blah 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 blah. Yeah. And I think I'm not going to do the next thing I was going to do. It's too fraught. Okay, what I'll do is something. I'm going to read a children's book. This book has helped me more in my meditation than many other things I've tried. It's called The Rabbit Listens. And at one point I was in a interview with Beth, and I said, "Well, I'm just doing rabbit meditation." She's like, "What?" So of course I had to explain the whole story to her. And I don't think it was the next interview, but a couple of interviews later, we come on camera, and she holds up the book. She had got the book, and she said she cried. She cried when she read it. But this to me, the rabbit represents this wise attention, this metta, this listening. And this is something we can all do. Learn to just be our own rabbit and really listen. So here goes. Okay. Let me try something. Okay. One day, Taylor decided to build something. This is Taylor, and Taylor's never gendered in the story. Taylor's just Taylor. Something new, something special, something amazing. Taylor was so proud. But then, out of nowhere, things came crashing down. No blame. This is just life. The chicken was the first to notice. Quack, quack. What a shame. I'm so sorry this happened. Let's talk about it. Quack, quack. But Taylor didn't feel like talking, so the chicken left. Next came the bear. How horrible! I bet you feel so angry. Let's shout about it. But Taylor didn't feel like shouting, so the bear left. The elephant knew just what to do. Trump, da da! I could fix this. We just need to remember exactly the way things were. But Taylor didn't feel like remembering, so the elephant also left. One by one they came. The hyena. Let's laugh about it. And the ostrich. Go. Well, let's hide and pretend nothing happened. The kangaroo. Tisk, tisk, what a mess. Let's throw it all away. And the snake. Shh, let's go knock down someone else's. But Taylor didn't feel like doing anything with anybody. So eventually they all left until Taylor was alone. In the quiet, Taylor didn't even notice the rabbit, but it moved closer and closer until Taylor could feel its warm body. Together, they sat in silence, and Taylor said, "Please stay with me." And the rabbit listened. The rabbit listened as Taylor talked. The rabbit listened as Taylor shouted. The rabbit listened as Taylor remembered and laughed. The rabbit listened to Taylor's plans to hide, to throw everything away, to ruin things for someone else. And through it all, the rabbit never left. And when the time was right, this is just like the Suttas. They talk about the time comes when. When the time was right, the rabbit listened to Taylor's plans to build again. I can't wait, Taylor said. It's going to be amazing. So this listening is so powerful. You know, Taylor went through all of those emotions that each animal came with their agenda of, you know. He went through all of those emotions and because they were received and listened to, they just worked themselves out for the most part. And this is this deep listening, learning to do this for ourselves, and then beginning to be able to do it for another. And then these two skills, we can be building them in tandem. And 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 you know, there's this yearning. There's a longing. There's a yearning in each of our hearts. You know, just accept me for who I am. And that's really important. And then the Dhamma piece is that we bring in this component of self-responsibility for our own defilements. So it's like so much of the spiritual path. It just seems like it's a paradox, right? Yes, accept me for who I am, and help me see and work with my own defilements. Both parts are there. And it's a subtle difference, but it's a complete game changer that we can be in relationship with one another, that where there is this deep acceptance and love. And then each one of us can be working with the challenging parts of ourselves and be purifying our hearts and our minds because of that love, not in order to receive that love. These are night and day, and many of us have somehow taken on this through our life, through our conditioning, that I'm changing in order to be loved. And it's the opposite. I'm changing because I am so loved. It's so different. And to be honest, this is my vision for the community, the resident community here, and then the greater community. That there's just like this blanket of love and acceptance, and and that's freely given. And of course, it's not going to we're not Buddhas. We can't really love unconditionally, but that can be our North Star. That that's the first. That's the ground floor. That's the tone of I love you, all of you, and when you do X, Y, Z, it's not skillful. It's hurting you. It's hurting me. It's very different, and it is a yearning, a longing for us to be fully seen. I'm speaking. Anna V has been here a year, and it's starting to happen where it there's a scary part to it, like if she really sees me, this is scary, but it's also delicious. It's absolutely delicious. We were at A's apartment helping her, you've got a big job, Scott, helping her sort through some of her accumulation. And at one point, and she's an astounding quilter. And there was this sort of small, like almost like a rag, of this material that she had practiced on. And I'm holding it up, and it was like it reminded me of Etch a Sketch, and doodle art, not like all of these pyrograph, all these things from my childhood. And I was just like, oh, and Anna Gaffey says to A, Ayya Ahimsa wants you to offer that to her. And it was one of those feelings of like being naked, like, oh my God, she can tell the little kid in me wants this. And and also like there's something delicious about being known. It's scary, but it's delicious. And we're all yearning for it. And we can be giving it to ourselves and then giving it to one another. And that I think that this is the heart of Kalyanamitta. It's this, we're all developing metta. It's this beautiful metta, this genuine, genuine, genuine acceptance and well-wishing for another. And just on this theme, I'll end with a quote that I heard at Scott Deal's here in the Digital Hobo. His group did two fundraisers for the victims of the Jasper Fire this past year. The first one was at Arts Place, and the second was at Banff Springs Hotel. And both times he had our MLA, Sarah El-Meligi, there. And she ended the night with a very inspiring talk. And she ended her talk. Here we are all sitting at the Banff Springs Hotel, and our government representative is quoting their meditation teacher. And then our community members on stage and done this amazing event, raising awareness and about the climate and raising funds. And I was just sitting there thinking it doesn't get much better than this. And Sarah, I know I've done it that I have to say it again. Sarah Al-Maliji said, love is the answer. And then she said, it doesn't matter what the question is. Love is the answer. So I'll end there.
Handamayandamakathaya sadhu karandadamase. Sadhu, 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 anumodami.
So if anyone has any great stories about